And welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper, along with Cliffy D. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. It's April. We're just getting that much closer to football again, but I tell you, worried about the weather because even though it's April, we are truly in springtime.
Yes.
We're supposed to be getting a big dumping of snow yet again. Which
Yes.
Again, in Montreal, it's normal for that to happen in April, but it doesn't make it any less disheartening to think, okay, maybe now I can put away the winter clothes. No, not yet.
Yeah,
Take off the snow tires. No, not yet.
No, not yet. No, stupid sprinter.
Lousy smarch weather.
Yeah, there you go. Want to remind everybody that this show is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code Flightdeck10 at checkout, you'll save 10% off your entire order. So if you head over to sportbuffshop.com, use the promo code, save 10%, buy new merch because there is a new shirt that they're currently offering for Alouettes. It's the Delta logo shirt, and support local.
Always support local.
Yeah. And again, reminder, coming up in a very short couple of weeks, we will be giving away our first 2024 edition of the SportBuff Flight Crew seats. And so stay tuned for that. And speaking of tickets, Cliff, as we announced today over on social media, we want to at least mention that we have now partnered with StubForge. StubForge is a company based out of Canada, where, and it's something that you and I have lamented many a time, Cliff, because we were at Grey Cup. There weren't Grey Cup tickets at all, except for the temporary one or the faux ones that they were giving out with the lanyards. But if we wanted, you can go over to StubForge and you can we could make our own commemorative Grey Cup ticket of something that we were there. But as you've seen, it's the same thing that we've had on our upcoming ads that we're going to be doing for the flight crew seats, as we showed in a couple of episodes ago. But Ivan's a good dude. I spoke with him the other night, and he's happy to partner with us going forward. You can head over to stubforge.com, or as we showed on social media, you can use that link specifically, and he will know that you have come from us. But I think it's a cool idea, man. I hate that, I was going to bring this up. Tickets and pocket schedules. They don't exist anymore. So
yeah. Do you wax nostalgia for fax machines too, Tim?
Fax machine? What's that?
Yeah. What's a pocket schedule? What's a paper ticket? Like this.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would think for championships that they would still do. You and I have had this conversation before, and I'm sure people have heard us talk about this way too much. It's like, shut up, Tim. We get it. Even though we are a week late doing our show for reasons, as we'll find out tonight, that there really wasn't that much going on. We do have a couple of things that we are going to talk about, obviously, before leading up to an interview that we have wanted to have for quite a while. Finally able to get a hold of this gentleman, and he was so gracious in giving us his time. Who do we have this episode, Cliff?
Oh my gosh! You talk about this Grey Cup winning team, and let me remind everybody that the Montreal Alouettes still are the reigning and defending Grey Cup champions. Who better to have on this podcast to talk about so many things? Really, is none other than the head coach of the Montreal Alouettes, one Jason Maas. We're very excited to talk with him about this Grey Cup winning team, about his philosophies, about what it takes to help put together this championship roster, and so much more. We were privileged to talk with him. We were hoping to do this last week. It didn't quite work out, but better late than never. And sometimes you end up when you get delayed with things, sometimes you end up with even better stuff than what you would have imagined. And I think we had one hell of a chat with Coach Maas. So by all means, folks, make sure you check this out. It is can't miss. I don't want to say TV, but I guess we're not really on TV, so to speak. But
can't miss YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a must listen. Let's put it that way.
There you go. We're bringing both things into it, YouTube and anything that people are listening to via their ear holes. So that'll work out well. That works out well. I said a couple of things we want to talk about. I said not much news that happened at all over the past couple of weeks. You and I had to go back and check, see what we had talked about last year, but we had a lot of things leading up to camp itself. But a couple of, I think one of the first things is that the Alouettes, Cliff, have announced that they are having an individual ticket pre-sale, and those are going to be starting on April 29th. Because it's funny, I've already had some people reach out to me, Cliff, and ask, I'd like to go to a game this year. When are single game tickets going to go on sale? Because I think of all years, this would be the year that you need to get your tickets early. Definitely. It's like us and doing our yearly upgrade for Thanksgiving. We'll probably need to do that sooner than later because we want to make sure that we get our seats and take advantage of the newer perk or modified perk that the Alouettes are doing this year when it comes to giving tickets to season ticket holders. So,
yeah, and maybe this is also a way to generate a little bit of FOMO as well, because as you said, this is a championship team now, so fans are going to want to come and see it. And I think I don't know if Montreal's become a destination again as far as places that other CFL fans will want to flock to, no pun intended, to go and watch a football game. But yeah, I mean, if folks, if you're not a season ticket holder, I get that. I mean, especially if you're from out of town or whatnot. Like, I understand why you may not have tickets yet, but if you're looking to go to a particular game, make the pilgrimage to Percival Molson Stadium and check out the Alouettes in action, by all means, April 29th, make sure you get on that. Make sure you get on the horn. However it is that you, how do people buy tickets? Once again, everything's done online now, right?
I know, either online or calling one of the ticket reps for the Alouettes.
Yeah, so make sure, come April 29th, make sure you get your tickets. Make sure you help pack Percival Molson Stadium because, again, this is going to be a fun football team to watch again. And it's funny, I don't think this time last year we were thinking about the what ifs, what could be's, and a lot of people thought this team was going to be absolute garbage, and lo and behold, they go and win the Grey Cup. So the pressure is on now, as far as I'm concerned. Like, now the hunters have become the hunted, and there's no doubting this team anymore. Like, now you're starting to look, and a lot of people are really. I'm already starting to see season predictions this year, and I'm kind of cringing a little bit because now it almost feels like, okay, everybody's giving the Alouettes their due, which is great, but at the same time, that means we can't fly under the radar anymore. Like, now this team has to perform. This team has to step up because now people are not doubting this team anymore. So I guess that's part of the fun. The part of the fun of, you're defending a championship now, so this is what you got to expect.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the thing, hey, it's that once they do come out, go ahead and make sure you contact the Alouettes and get your tickets. I'm sure if you're gonna miss the Grey Cup banner ceremony, come on. Of any game that you need to go to this year, that would be, in my opinion, that would be on the top of the list, of course.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's something that just doesn't happen every single year. Is the unfurling of a Grey Cup banner. I mean, that's exciting. I mean, that's something I'm very, very excited to see, and all Alouettes Nation should be excited to see. And folks, you got to come be a part of it. Simply put, I mean, I will be stunned, quite frankly, if this game is not sold out. As just for that alone. I mean, we haven't talked about the possibility if they're going to do another big time act to play at halftime, if they're going to have other events or promotions going on for that game to help hype it up. But I think this is a game that kind of sells itself, to tell you the truth. I mean, just based on the simple fact that you are about to see your reigning and defending Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes, that alone should be enough to, sell out Percival Molson Stadium. But some people need a little bit more, I suppose. So here's hoping that just the thought of hearing for the first time this team being announced as the Grey Cup champions, at Personal Wilson Stadium. I mean, that alone should get everybody buying tickets, but
Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. Also, the Alouettes have brought back a couple of things, and I think they've been around for a while, but I think they've been made more big deal about them. Cliff, is they did bring back the Ensemble à l'école, the Together at School program.
Mhm.
What's funny about that, just over this past Easter weekend, I actually was speaking to a relative of mine, and he said that they were in Lachute just recently,
Ooh.
in Lachute, Quebec, and they were there with the Grey Cup, a couple of the players and stuff like that. So it's there. This has been a staple ever since the Alouettes have been around. And I think it may have took a kind of a beating in the past couple of years, and obviously with COVID and et cetera, et cetera. But they have brought it back, and hey, they get to bring the Grey Cup now with them. You know what I mean?
I mean, how cool is that? I mean, you go to school like you're supposed to and get an education, and then all of a sudden, a couple of members of the Montreal Alouettes walk in with the Grey Cup, and you get a chance to talk with them and take a picture with the Grey Cup. I mean, listen, any kid should be jazzed about that, quite frankly.
Oh yeah, exactly. I don't know. Again, if your child happens to be at one of these at these locations, go ahead and try to hype them up for me. Oh wow, it's actually the 26th anniversary this year.
Wow,
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean that practically from day one, almost, as far as community engagement. It's something that this team has talked about for years upon years. Is that they want to be a part of the community. They want to help be that that driving force to get people interested in football and in the Alouettes. And what better way to do it to help build those future fans? And I mean, we've talked with a couple of the Quebec-born players that they talked about it. Like, yeah, when I was in school, the Alouettes came. And I don't recall anyone bringing the Grey Cup trophy of the years that they won it, or at least nobody ever mentioned it when that happened. But still, the players came. They talked to us. We got their autographs. We took pictures with them.
Yeah,
and it was exciting. And you think about like the guys that are on this team right now. It's very possible that was what started it for them. That's what got them excited about football and made them want to go and pursue it, and then eventually become a career move for them. And you never know, like the next great superstar could be sitting in a classroom right now and is about to get a visit from Marc-Antoine Dequoy and Jamar McGloster. Oh, and the Grey Cup's coming along for a visit.
And the Grey
Cup.
Cup.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. So
yeah, I mean, also seems here too that should be noted, as the Alouettes were stated here, that each school visited will be able to attend an Alouettes game during the 2024 season, and also 2 students per school board that will have distinguished themselves during the year will be awarded a scholarship of $500.
That's very cool. Again, so, this is all part of the Alouettes organization giving back to the city of Montreal, the province of Quebec, and so on. It's, I mean, you love to see it. Simply put, that is how you build fans for life.
Yep. Also, another thing that the Alouettes have announced is, I don't know, is this the return of? I'm trying to remember the last time that this actually occurred. But the Alouettes are playing hockey again. They are. It seems like they're only going to be doing they've already. They're coming up. The 2 of them are coming up. Dates. Check my dates. They are coming up this month. They are going to be playing 2 hockey games. Alouettes players versus, I can't remember who it's supposed to be against. I'm going to look here real quickly. But it's basically a hockey tour that they're going to be doing, something that they used to do in the past. Actually, if you go on the Alouettes boutique, if they're still there, they still have some of the old hockey jerseys that they had made for the players back then. I think they're still available on the boutique website. But they're going to be playing 2 games in April, Saturday, April 13th. In Chicoutimi, and then they're going to be playing April 20th at Colisée Vidéotron in Trois-Rivières. And they also had scheduled another one for December. Looks like Byron Archambault, Martin Berdard, Luc Beaudesjardins, Frédéric Chagnon, Marc-Antoine Dequoy, Eric Delorier, Danny Devereaux, Alexandre Gagne, and Buna Heppel are just a few of the names that will be representing the Alouettes team. I don't know if I would want to go up against them.
I don't know. They're pretty dangerous without skates on. I can just imagine how dangerous they would be with skates on. So, yeah, maybe you don't want that smoke.
No, same, but they are holding a tailgate also, by the way. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, or by that same token, maybe they'll prove that they're much better off without wearing skates. Like maybe they're much more dangerous wearing cleats. So
there you go. So they're having a tailgate also. Players and alumni will be able to meet fans at autograph sessions, and spectators will also be able to take pictures with the Grey Cup between periods during the game.
That's pretty damn cool. That's awesome. So if you're in the Chicoutimi area, was it on the 13th, or if you're in Trois-Rivières on the 20th, by all means, I would make the pilgrimage and go check this out, folks. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, don't know where the December game that they've already announced is going to be held or what date, but that will come at a later time that they will announce that. So, and maybe they'll be able to, people will be able to see the Grey Cup again also. Right.
Could you imagine? Wow.
Get out of cool. Also, no, I think that was it. No, we had a couple player signings, but not very many. I mean, one was that was announced today. Cliff, was for Trey Botts. He is a where is it here? He is from Colorado State University, Pueblo, and he is a defensive lineman.
Once again, Danny Mac is just going to keep on tinkering with that defensive line. Just never happy, Just always adding to it, always trying to find that magic formula. Even though he won a Grey Cup with the absolutely outstanding defensive line he had last year, pieces change all the time, right? So I guess it's just yet another chance to add some depth, which you can't be mad about that. That's going to be. That's always a good thing. I mean, there's a lot of talent on the defensive line. There's absolutely no question about that. But doesn't hurt to have one or two other weapons in the war chest. Yeah,
exactly. So we teased it before at the beginning of the show, Cliff. For anybody who happened to miss it, or they want to hear it again, who are we about to talk to this week?
Well, once again, I've said before and I'll say it again. This is a must listen in. So, without further ado, let's bring on and have a chat with the head coach of your Montreal Alouettes, one and only Jason Maas.
And with us this week, we're very proud to have the gentleman who led the Alouettes to their first Grey Cup championship in 13 years. So that's all the way back in 2010. He is also, and I don't know if even Coach knows this, Coach Maas became only the second player in Alouettes history to not only quarterback a game, but also to lead their team to a Grey Cup. Hey, Coach, congratulations. And hey, welcome to the Flight Deck.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Did you know you were in that rarefied group with Coach, with Sam Echeverry?
No, I did not know that. That's pretty cool, though. Anytime you're mentioned with Sam Echeverry, that's a pretty cool thing. So,
yeah, exactly. Obviously, congratulations once again. It was a hell of a year for you. Looking back a year itself, Coach, did you really? How is this like? A complete night and day versus the beginning of 2023 versus the 2024 this year.
Oh, it is night and day. There's no question about that. Last year, just being hired was a leap of faith. I felt with Danny doing that with me, and there was a lot to figure out and a lot to a lot of trust between he and I to embark on that season of what we were going to do and how we were going to accomplish it. And we were at such a different stage than what we are right now. Just ownership, president, team, all that, free agency. We had so much that we had to get done when I was first hired. Now looking back, and it's been over a year now, thinking when free agency was coming along and December was coming along after the Grey Cup, I mean, thinking about the whole year it was a roller coaster, but it was just an amazing, amazing experience. I can't even really, it's hard for me to put into words. And, if you had me on here long enough, I probably could, but I will say this, it was like any other year I had ever experienced as a coach, a player, in sports in general. I mean, to go from one of the lowest lows to one of the highest highs you could possibly get in our sport, in just one full calendar year. And to do it, not only that, it was just doing it with the people we did it with and the players we did it with and the locker room, how it became, and the organization, how it came together. It just became a magical, special thing. And you know, that's not lost on me of how I felt about it. And so I was grateful for the low and grateful for the high.
Where did obviously throughout the year, you know, how it began where nobody was giving the Alouettes an iota chance of going anywhere in 2023. Where did the whole narrative of us versus them, or the Owls being, you know, part of the misfit toys, where did that whole narrative come about?
Well, I think honestly, our players had a lot to do with that, the way they felt, you know, because I think the messaging throughout our organization, and particularly through me and the coaches, we didn't worry about those kinds of things. I didn't worry about where people were projecting us to be. We were simply worried about ourselves every single day, trying to get the organization going in the right direction, how we practiced, how we came together, the beliefs that we had, the core foundation was needing to be built. And honestly, it wasn't needing to be completely built, because I think Danny did a great job towards the end of the previous year of steering everything in the right direction with the right people. You know, it was just more of coming together, me getting on board with them and seeing the direction and then saying, okay, can we do this, this, and this to make it even go further? And, you know, that was what was mostly on our minds as the people that were leading it, I guess, throughout the organization. The players, I think, and I didn't really realize it, honestly, until I listened to Cody talk about it in that passionate speech he gave just before the Grey Cup, when he said, look, and it made a lot of sense to me, that he says, you know, I get signed and right away I get signed the next week, the projections come out and we go from 3rd place to 9th place because I got signed as the quarterback. And I get it. Like that can be a very, very motivating thing. And I think professional athletes in general look for the smallest thing to motivate them. And that just happened to be a huge thing. And I think that he was the type of person that took that very personal. And I think as a season, as Alouette players, to think you go from 3rd place, just, I mean, within a play from going to the Grey Cup the year before, you know, making the playoffs, having a playoff win and getting that close, to think that you're nothing, that you're going to finish 9th because the head coach changed and the quarterback changed and we lost some pieces, but they didn't talk anything about the pieces we retained, anything about the pieces we gained. It was all about the pieces lost and the people the additions, about how, I guess, poorly people looked upon. So I just wasn't one of them that felt that way or wanted. And I don't even know if I didn't feel that way, because probably honestly, deep down, I look for motivation just like everybody else. I just didn't want to pay any mind to it. I felt like there was things that I could control that I'd worry about. And I could not control how people thought about us, you know, or what they thought we were going to be. It was just, how can we get to the end of this road the way we want to do it? And how do we build it a certain way? And that's the only thing Danny and I ever spoke of. It was never about what people thought about us. But like I said, I get it completely what the players did. But I didn't really listen to them talk about it until the end. And then when I heard it, I was like, geez, that made a lot of sense that you guys were holding on to that stuff and used it. The problem I have with that is, now what are you going to do after you win it and they pick you 1st, 2nd, 3rd, whatever they pick you? Now, what's your motivation now? And that's why I think it's better to think about what you can control and how hard we're working at something and the way we practice and the way we come together. Let's focus on those things, because ultimately I believe that's why we got there. It wasn't because of the motivating factor out externally that someone gave us. It was because of what we really put our mind to and what we set out to accomplish. We did by coming together.
I mentioned to Cliff, and I at least have to ask you. So being that you're the lead, you are, the head coach of this team, you're the leader of this team, and if you were a bunch of misfit toys, does that make you Unicorn Cornelius?
I don't know about that. I don't even know what that means.
I was wondering if I was going to date myself. Okay, does that mean you're Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or
well,
the leader?
Yeah, I get it. No,
yeah, that backfired, Cliff.
Yeah.
That one we might have to edit that one out.
What I wanted to ask you too, Coach, is obviously this year, besides how the team felt about each other, how everybody was disrespecting, you yourself also were able to be a huge part of, obviously, besides being head coach, but you also created something that I think that not only the team, and I don't know how many fans actually saw it, or if they happen to have a great eye and they caught it on social media. I know we asked you about it too. That you created a logo this year or last year for the 2023 season that encompassed everything that you were preaching for the team. For those who may have not known about the logo itself, are you able to just give a quick synopsis of how the idea came about and how you were able to use it as that preaching point for the 2023 season?
I mean, ultimately, it's something, that I'd been thinking long and hard since the moment I got hired about, this team and how to build, like we talked about. When you talk about culture, you talk about building something from the ground up and looking at the history of the organization and knowing what I was getting into. I had played there. I knew a lot of the individuals that were there, and the things that they were talking to me about that were important factors of being there. But, I wanted something, and I wanted to think of something, a saying, something visual, something to talk about, and it wasn't something we'd focus on every day. It was just going to be a constant reminder about what we are and what we've been, what we are, what we're choosing to be, I guess. And gravitating towards. So, it was about this time, honestly, last year. I'd been thinking about it for about 4 or 5 months of what that first meeting, what you're going to talk about and all that. And, I talked to my wife and I said, they've won 7 Grey Cups, and the 8th Grey Cup is what we're really striving to obtain at some point in this. Whether it's going to happen this year or next year, that's the goal. The next one is to win it. And so that 8, and I thought about, the teams that are remembered are usually remembered as great. And so it just started to snowball from there, the great 8. And that's initially where the thought process came from. And then it was, okay, well, I'm a big thinker on acronyms, and I think of the word 8, the 8, eating something, all those things. And what I wanted our team to players, to what I was looking for, what we were looking for. That 8 kept coming up, and it was ability, toughness, effort. They had to have an uncommon ability to be on our team, to make our team. Toughness, physical and mental, because the games are won and lost in our league at the last 3 minutes, which is the toughest time. You have to be the most mentally tough. And then to grind through 18 games plus in this league, you got to be physically tough. So that AT, and then the E, the effort that we were going to look for every single day out of our players, whether that was in the classroom, learning French, practicing, on the field. We wanted to be known for something, and that was what it was going to be known for, an uncommon effort. And that's the way we were going to play. So when it started to, come together that way, I started to think about, how we were going to do that. When we put our players together in those groups that we call the Bird's Nest, we wanted to have something like that. So we made sure that was on there, to have a constant reminder of the teams that have come before us. I wanted a visual of what that would look like. And, you look like, you put those numbers up there and then you separate them by a point, and then it looked like a clock or it looked like a combination. And then, knowing what we come out on the field with is a bird cage, and, that has a lock on it as a combination. Well, when you're talking about unlocking something, you're talking about unlocking greatness. And what's behind that lock is a bunch of great players. And that's what's ultimately going to run out on that field for us. You talk about where we came from, the 425 division. The Alouette name came from the 425, which is from World War II. And I wanted to make sure that people understood where we came from, particularly American players, but people from Quebec, people that should be proud of the 425. And that was an Alouette division made up of a French squadron. And ultimately, we're in a province that is Quebec, and that's what separates, Montreal from the rest of the league, is that uniqueness. And so that's why the fleur de lis on our logo, and the 4-2-5, if you separate the 4 and the 5 with that 2 and make the 2 a little smaller, well, that 4 or 5 represented the 45 players that would be on the field at one time every single game. So you have to really ball out during the week to be considered one of those 45. So that was a proud distinction we wanted to make. Like I said, the 3 minutes that's on that logo is a digital 3 minutes, because again, that plays towards our toughness, our physical toughness, where 60% of games in this league are won or lost in the last 3 minutes. You see a 0.12 or 12%, which is the only thing we talk about after a game. And I know our players get tired of hearing about it, but I talked from day one about turnover margin being a huge predictor of wins and losses in our league. And I said, if you are a disciplined football team and you have the least amount of penalties and the best turnover margin in the league, you'll lead the league. You'll get to the Grey Cup, in fact. The top teams generally do. And Winnipeg's led the league in the least amount of penalties, I think, the last 6 years, and they've been the last 4 Grey Cups. And the team that just won the last Grey Cup was one of the highest turnover margin teams, Toronto, that led our league in the regular season with turnover margin. That's why they won 16 games. Mm-hmm. So we have that 12% that talks about every single week, how do we get low turnover margin? Well, it's taking care of the football. It's preaching that in practice. Why do we go through drills? Why do we critique people all the time? And that's all phases. Why do we do the drills we do? Why do we effort towards the ball and try to have 5 people around the ball to knock the ball out? Because we want to lead the league in turnover margin, and we want to be disciplined so that we have the least amount of penalties so we can lead the league and become first. So we only have to win one game of the Grey Cup. On that logo, there's infinity signs at the very bottom of that logo. And those are really just lazy 8s, in my opinion. And so that 8 keeps playing over and over again. Why is there 3 of them? There's 3 of them because it's offense, defense, and special teams. They get linked together. So those infinity signs actually link together, look like a chain. And so when you link all together, it tells you that it takes all 3 phases in a game to win. And then on top of it, if you ever win number 8, well, if you look at those other numbers, 49, 70, 74, 77, 02, 09, 10, and we were hoping 23 would be a part of that. Well, those are infinity signs for a reason, because that means it's forever. If you win, you get put up there, that 8 will be turned into 23, but that 8th Grey Cup will be remembered forever. The great teams are remembered forever. There's a lot of great teams. I mean, I played against some of them. The 03 team was great. The 05 team was great. They just aren't remembered as much because they didn't win the Grey Cup. But they were a great football team, and they have their own journey. But only the great ones are remembered. And so that's why that infinity sign's there. And then if you look at the whole logo, it's got a airplane design around it. And that's, again, an homage to the Alouette division. And we wanted it to be like it's taking off, that we're always going higher and higher. And that kind of played into our back stronger, fly higher philosophy last year as well. And then the bottom of that logo, the engine, is kind of an homage again to the 77 team, right? That won the Grey Cup. And we were looking for an engine. And when I look at that logo, that's what it reminds me of. Reminds me of a jet engine on the bottom of it. So, when I initially thought of the logo, it just started with the grade 8, the grade 8 thought. We're looking for the grade 8 greatness. And then it just kind of played everything into it. The last thing I'll say on that logo, there's a design of a map. And I don't know if you can really tell in detail what that map is.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's behind it's in the middle of those numbers. And again, the numbers itself with the keyhole is to remind yourself that that's a keychain or a keyhole, and the right combination of team and player helps win the 8th Grey Cup. But that map that's detailed on top of that is the background of it. It was simply just, again, like a bomber making his payload in what I thought of as World War II. If those guys' job was to bomb a certain place, well, you would have a topographical map. You would know the elevations. You would know the spots strategically to drop on. And so that is the map actually of Mont Royal and of where our stadium is. And it's not like you'd bomb your own backyard, but the enemy is on that field. And so you would be, going in, and that would be the most important time. That last 30 minutes or that game is the most important part of being in that bombing division. And so we wanted that to be Montreal, the backdrop of Montreal on that map. So that tied into it as well. So that's kind of the whole logo in and of itself. I mentioned the bird's nest. The reason it's red, blue, and green, it's a whole bunch of sticks woven together like a bird's nest would be. But the red, blue, and green signifies our global is green. Our red is Canadians, our blue are American players that are together. And our bird's nest is split up. And last year it was 8 groups of 8. So it was 8 guys of 8. And obviously we added to it and all that. And it started with 12 groups of 8 in training camp and dwindled itself down during the season because we ultimately ended up having 77 people. But the green, again, for the green jerseys that were worn in 77, and the red and the blue, obviously, like I said, the way we signify on our roster, Canadians to Americans. So, that's where we nurture. That's where we learn each other. That's where we become one, is that bird's nest group. That's where we learn to compete. That's where we learn to get close as a unit, as teams. And that's the way we brought up our team. One of the strategic things we did in the offseason was try to get closer and try to get closer faster, because we knew there were so many new pieces that were coming in to the season. It's no different than this year. We started this 9 weeks ago, putting these guys into their bird's nest groups already so that they will be close when they get to training camp. So the O-line will know some of the D-line. The D-line will know some of the receivers. The receivers know some of the DBs because they'll have one of them in their group. So, we paid a lot of attention to that. And that's why I say when you think culture, people talk and throw that word out there a lot. It's really what you do to develop your culture every single day. Mm-hmm. Well, that bird's nest helps develop our culture.
We kind of, Cliff and I have been waiting just weeks to hear the explanation. I appreciate it, Coach, because there's just so much symbolism. There's so much thought put into it. There's so many homages to the city, the province, the history, the team itself. You think about the colors. It's just, I love it. I love it, yeah. And I really, if you have an idea for one for 2024, I can't wait. I'll
say this, to be quite honest with you, the only thing that's changing, the other thing we did with this logo was we made it, because I didn't, honestly, when you develop it, you're not sure how long it's going to take to win number 8, because it ain't easy to win a championship. I don't think people realize the CFL. It's not easy to win. And so we didn't know, but all I wanted in that logo was to encompass all the beliefs that we had, the things that are going to make us great, the things that are important to our organization. They're in here. And so all we simply do every year is change the 8 to a 9. And so this year it's grind for 9. That's our idea, is grind for 9. So we talked about it. That was one of the drive home with Danny. When we were in that car, we're talking about it. And I said, Danny, I've already been thinking about this for next year. And, I talked to my son and talked to my wife again. And those are the people I bounce ideas off of. And, I said, if you grind, that's what's going to take. It takes the whole year to grind. So grind for 9 is not a bad way to think about things. So we're going to do that. We're going to add, a few letters, something to do with Cody's speech at the end there that he gave. That'll probably be on the wings this year, and people will probably notice that. That'll be different. And so those little adds and additions will be added to it every year, because again, we're taking it from year to year. Mm-hmm. And so you'll add something to it. I don't think you take away, you just add to this logo.
Yeah.
And what becomes important. 1%. We talked a lot about 1%, about you say, really, what did it come down to? It was guys being disrespected. Well, that disrespect is people not believing in you. So there was a big saying going around our team about 1%. The 1% that believe are in our locker room, or maybe our fans that believe that we're going to go all the way. And so that 1% is probably going to be on that logo this year, and that'll be a belief that'll probably be in that keyhole, because behind the keyhole is the players.
Yeah.
And that's who's coming out, is that 1% that believe.
That's amazing. One more question I'll lay, then I'll let Cliff take over.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to ask you for a while, Coach. People know that you, in 2007, you were traded to the Montreal Alouettes, and that's how you became, you started a game that year. what I wanted to ask you specifically, because I know there was stuff that was written, et cetera, but I wanted to ask you specifically, what's the difference between the Jason Maas of 2007, who started for the Alouettes, versus the Jason Maas in 2023, who was hired as their head coach?
Yeah, it's 16 years of growth. I think some maturity, and you know, there's, you know, a dad in there that's grown. I mean, just as a person, I think you grow. Am I passionate like I was in 07? I mean, I don't think I'll ever get that out of my body. I mean, I feel a certain way about football. I feel a certain way when I'm on a football field, whether it's coaching or playing, that I don't think I'll ever change. But the way I think about people, the way I think about life, the way I think about the daily ritual that I go through, the people I care about, what I truly believe in that, you know, makes you the best you can be, or a team the best they can be, that all obviously has been growing and maturing over 16 years. And all the things I've gone through in my life, or gone through in those last 16 years, has helped me become the person that Montreal hired in 23. But the passionate individual, that kind of thing, I don't know that that'll ever change. How I display that passion probably has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that, obviously, and I wasn't shy about talking about that last year. And, you know, when I talk about that 12% on that logo, it started with me in training camp, talking about to the guys, saying, hey, if I'm going to ask you to be disciplined on the field, I will be more disciplined off the field. And it's going to start with me. And I showed them clips of me not behaving the way a head coach should on the sideline, in my opinion, not one that wants its team to be disciplined anyways. So that's what you got. I mean, from that guy in 07 to 23, there's a lot of growth, a lot of maturity, you know, some good and some bad, to be honest with you.
And you also showed us too, and Cliff and I mentioned it on one of our previous episodes from last year, is that you're talking about how you have grown into yourself, is how well you took control of the team in the playoffs with that large scrum versus Hamilton, because there could have been some huge repercussions, but you were front and center saying, guys, get back. There's more than just to this one moment. We have to worry about next week.
Well, exactly. And you know, it's amazing, because when people talk about our season, I don't ever want people to forget we were 6-7 at one point in our season. And the reason I believe we won 8 straight is because there was a lot of lessons learned in those other 13 games. You know, there was a lot of things that we learned. Our last loss in Toronto, one of those last losses, that loss right there, I could go back and show you 3 plays that helped us win one of those games down the stretch. You know, so I'm a firm believer that, you know, you do get better through going through things. And one of the things that we gained from those experiences was discipline on the field, saying there is nothing that anybody can do on the field to us that would cause us to be undisciplined on the field. Nothing should, no matter what someone says, no matter what they do. And I get it. Someone punches you, someone spits on you, someone kicks you, someone does that to one of your teammates, and you love them. And I mean, there's a lot of love in our locker room. So you can imagine the restraint it takes for an Antwi when he sees one of his best friends get punched, that he's going to lose his mind. And yet he was able to control it to a degree. And that's all we needed for it not to get out of control. But I think what you saw was a lot of people understood where our belief was, that, hey, no matter what happens out there, let's handle it the way we need to. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't a talk of, if they need to meet us in the parking lot after the game, maybe that's different. But on the field, we're a different team. We're going to be disciplined like crazy. And I say that tongue in cheek, meet us in the parking lot. But I think our guys understood right there that, hey, on the field is one thing, off the field's an entirely different animal. So
yep, sure. Yep. Cliff?
You know, Coach Quick probably would have taken you up on that offer of meet me in the parking lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll say this, you know, and football is played by alpha males. There is no question about it. I mean, there's not a lot of football players that will stand down to anybody in anything in life. I just haven't met them. I just there's a certain thing that it takes to play football. It's an aggressive mind. It's a sport that is very, very physical. It's a collision sport. It's a sport that's not meant to be played more than once a week. We play it more than that because of our schedule and because of the amount of teams we have. But, you know, it's an alpha male dominated sport. But you got to have discipline to play it. And, you know, there has to be some restraint and control. And shoot, there's sheer size that should hope that that is the case, because some of these guys are big individuals, but that breed of person is out there that won't back down. And like I said, I applaud our players for that core belief that there's something more important out there than what's on the field at any one point, that we need to be disciplined for the guy next to us and for what's to come, and not let it get out of hand. And because I don't think anybody isn't going to step up for someone. That's Coach Quick, Coach Thorpe, Coach Archibald. All our coaches are going to have our players' backs, and our players are going to have each other's backs. But I think our players do a great job when they're on the field of being restrained when it comes to those extracurricular things.
Mm-hmm. No, and the one thing that I took away from that scrum more than anything else, and we were in the stands, obviously we saw everything go down live, and of course everybody was just beside themselves, just like, what the hell's going on? And I think a lot of the online pundits and haters and what have you, they were waiting for you to see the Jason Maas of old, you know, losing your mind and everything like that. But you stayed calm, cool, collected, and as you said, you led by example. And I came away so impressed with your demeanor. Like you made it clear to the referees that you were not impressed with what went on, but you made it clear that we're playing next week. So
exactly,
yeah.
And that's I'm glad you brought that up, because that was my biggest concern. Is, you know, I knew what type of team we had, and I knew our guys understood what we had talked about before, and I think they had seen examples of it, because even a few weeks before that, the BC game at home, when we take an extracurricular punch in the back by one of our players on their players and extended the drive, and that was probably one of the last times our player got out of hand. And we made it a point after that game to say, look, there's nothing. We cannot do these kinds of things if we want to go where we want to go. And so that was my biggest concern, was not that our players were going to get more out of hand. It was what the league was going to do, because I thought our players did do a good job for the circumstance that was in place and put in front of them to control themselves. I was just hoping the league's cooler head would prevail and understand that we do have game to play next week, whereas they didn't. And I think that also played a little bit into how it got out of hand, to be honest with you, because there is emotions. You play, you're going home if you lose. I mean, bad things tend to happen at the end of the games because of that.
Oh, it's true. And Hamilton was expected to be at the Grey Cup because they were hosting it. They did all the moves they made and everything, just like you guys made all the moves to get to the Grey Cup. And the better team won that day, simply put. And for a lot of players and coaches and what have you, I'm sure that's a very bitter pill to swallow, to have put in all that effort and just come up short.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you watch sports in general, you know, all over the world, when it comes down to elimination style games, there's a different fervor in the stands. There's a different feeling. And you like to say you play every game like it's your last. You play every game like it's a playoff game. That's a mantra you hear quite a bit of cliche. But there is just nothing like sudden death football or sudden death basketball or hockey. When you know it's it, that's it for the season. That's it for that team. You know, you talk about greatness. You only recognize the one standing at the end. You don't recognize if you don't host the trophy at the end of the year. So that puts another pressure on already taxed individuals who are tired, who have given everything they've absolutely had to the sport, to the team, to the game. And when they come up short and they know they're going home, that's why I say, watch what you ask for when you interview a person right after a game. Because when the emotions are running high, you may hear something that you probably wouldn't hear if you gave that person 10, 15 minutes to an hour to the next day. They're probably going to think a little bit differently. Put a mic in someone's face right after a game, you're going to hear it. You just better hold your butt, because you might hear some things you don't want to hear.
Wow. Yeah. It's incredible. Let's circle back quickly to when you were hired by the Alouettes. Now, the other coaches that were on staff at the time, Anthony Calvillo, Noel Thorpe, and so on, they were also interviewed as well for the head coaching position. Ultimately, Danny Machocha chose you, and you chose to keep these other coaches in place. How did that work out in the sense of, okay, I wanted this job, but now this guy's coming in and now he's my boss? How does that dynamic unfold to what we see today?
Well, I think the first things first. I mean, the guys that were the individuals that you talked to that were, interviewed, they're great. Not only great coaches, they're great people. And, there is a reason they got the interviews. And they were equally qualified for it. And I know they were disappointed, and maybe some more than others, because, if you haven't put the time in, let's say Noel Thorpe's put in well over 20 years as an assistant, and he's been a great assistant over the years, his disappointment in not getting it compared to, maybe an AC who's not coached as long. But either way, it's disappointment. When someone tells you you're not getting something, there is going to be a bit of disappointment. The thing that I think we had going for us as an organization is the guys that were interviewed, the guys that we chose to keep or they chose to stay. I also had a relationship with them, prior to this. And so when it comes down to it, when I call or someone calls and says, hey, I know you didn't get the job, but I still value you as a coach. And I know Danny valued you enough to give you an interview. And I have no ego. So it's not like I went in there and said, hey, he chose me, so this is the way we're going to do things. You didn't get the job for this reason. There's none of those things. It was, all right, I've been hired. I want you. Do you want to be here? And the moment you want to be here and you sign up for this, we're working together to make this happen. It's not going to be my show only. I'm going to take the blame. That's one thing about a head coach. You get all the blame. You get a lot of accolades that I like to deflect, but I never deflect the blame. I'll take the blame. So, at the end of the day, we're doing this together. We're going to come up with the ideas. We're going to come up with the way we practice. I'm going to have a lot of belief in you. If I'm hiring you as my D coordinator, I'm going to let you coach. I'm not going to micromanage you. If you're going to be my offensive coordinator, I don't want to micromanage my special teams coordinator or there's no micromanaging. I'm a big believer in coaches coach. And I'm there to facilitate things and help them grow and help them with needs that they want, things that they need to do their job better. But I don't want to nitpick them to death. I want to be more of a positive influence. And I think that was one of the things that I don't know if anybody's not coached with me before. I hope they would tell you is I like to have fun. I like to let the coaches coach. And I'm a big believer in being positive about things. So I don't think I would hope we went through a couple of losing streaks, a 4-game losing streak, a 3-game losing streak during the season. I hope our coaches and players will both tell you they couldn't tell by me whether we were in the 4-game winning streak, 8-game winning streak, or a 3-game losing streak by how I treated people, how we went about our day as coaches. I'm just a big believer in that. So I think once you start talking to them, maybe the disappointment started to leave. And I think they started to get excited about the season. And that's what they thought about it. And of course, you use a year like this to put it on your resume that the next opportunity they get as coaches or head coach opportunities, I hope they're better prepared for it and someone ends up choosing them because ultimately nothing would make me happier than that.
Amazing. Anthony Calvillo, you were his backup all those years ago, and now he's, in a sense, your backup, so to speak. Talk to us about that. Talk about that sort of a full circleness of, the two of you working together on the field, and now the two of you working together off the field, but now the roles are, I guess, a little bit reversed.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that. I mean, I've known Anthony longer than I've known anybody on staff. So I mean, our kind of relationship started back in 1996. When I met him down in Oregon when I was playing there, went out and threw a football with him a couple times, and was able to play golf with him one day, and then came up and obviously played against him for years and played with him in 2007. So I've gotten to know Anthony throughout the years. I actually went to a couple of his camps that he had in Montreal. He'd invite me for it. I helped coach. So he and I go pretty far back. There isn't a lot of guys I respect more than Anthony in the career he had. So when I was hired, I was absolutely ecstatic to work with him. And I've been nothing but blown away by his professionalism, the way he approaches each and every day, how he coaches, the things that he comes up with. So yes, I look at it. Yeah, I am the head coach. AC is our offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. But I like to have a saying in our organization. There's no top to bottom. There's all around our organization that takes the win. And he's just one of those guys that has a job to do and does it extremely well. So, I would never I don't like to think about it as a boss. I like to think it as we're both in the same boat as far as we both coach the offensive side of the team, both got different responsibilities on our team, and both try to do our job the best of our ability. But we both work very well together, in my opinion.
Your coworkers.
Yeah, that's how I like this to think about it. And again, even AC, I hope AC would tell you the same. Like, I do call the game, and he comes together with the plan and all those things. He and Mike and Luke and Dave. We're all going to come up with this plan. I may call the game, but it's just not my show. I ask a lot of questions throughout the week, throughout the course of the game. I like feedback. I like to talk with them. And so when he's up in the booth, he's coaching a lot. He has a lot of thoughts that are being implemented throughout the week, throughout the game. He's extremely bright, and I value his opinion so much. So, I think, like I said, we have a dynamic working relationship. I think we work very well together. I have the utmost respect for him. But of course, I get it. There's definitely a difference in our job title. But as far as the work we put in, we both put a lot of work into this.
You're into it for the greater good. That's the best way to describe it.
Yep.
All right. When it came to you coming to Montreal, before free agency started in 2023, Trevor Harris was the quarterback here in Montreal, and no doubt you were preparing to be the coach for Trevor Harris. He ends up leaving for Saskatchewan, which you invariably end up leaving, from, only to come to Montreal and end up with Cody Fajardo, your former quarterback in Saskatchewan, as your quarterback in Montreal. Take us through that roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, I mean, when you get hired, one of the first calls you're going to make, and I think this is probably pretty common for most head coaches, particularly offensive head coaches, you're going to call the starting quarterback of the team, and particularly if you have a relationship with them, which I already previously did with Trevor, having coached him in Toronto, coached him in Edmonton, and then obviously throughout the years I've kept up with him. So that was a pretty easy call and a pretty easy talk about the situation we were both presently in, and knowing full well that free agency was coming up and we needed to re-sign him. And but like you had kind of preluded to, you have to prepare for plan A, plan B, plan C. And we were preparing. Danny and I had talked with the ownership situation, the money that wasn't being given for free agency, and really the amount of money being spent wasn't quite there. And we knew what Trevor was going to cost, roughly what it was going to cost. And it was about him having faith that it would get done when it needed to get done, which is right at free agency deadline. Obviously, it's history is what ended up transpiring, which is Trevor didn't wait. He wanted it to go where he knew there was a for sure thing, which I don't think anybody could blame him. But we were already prepared in case that was going to happen, for the next best option. And, Cody being a free agent, having been let go, having me have a relationship with them, I think that was just a natural thing. And when I did talk to Cody, and again, I talked to Cody leaving Sask, and, there wasn't a lot of talk until we started thinking about the next plan. When I first talked to Cody, honestly, with the way it went in Saskatchewan, I wouldn't have blamed Cody if he said, "Coach, we worked for 2 years together. The last year it didn't work out quite so well. I'd like to just move on and go somewhere else." I was fully prepared for him to tell me that too. But that wasn't what I got. It was a totally different way. And I was very appreciative of the words he spoke and his mindset. And, I have nothing but respect for Cody and the way he played and the way he handled himself in Saskatchewan, the way he prepared, the things I saw him do, hurt and healthy and everything in between. I know the team that, was on the field with them throughout the weeks, and, the struggles that we did have to put people on the field and keep people healthy. And again, quarterbacks always get too much credit. They get too much blame. And so I was very thrilled when Cody said what he said and about his willingness to come to Montreal. And what I was happy for, though, was Danny watched all his film, Anthony watched all his film, and they both came to the conclusion that Cody was a great addition to the Montreal Alouettes. And Danny signing him to 2 years, not 1 year, proved that or showed that respect to Cody. And also the contract. It wasn't a second-tier contract. It was a starter's contract. And so I think a lot of respect was shown by Cody to us and us to Cody. And I think ultimately that's why it worked. And so we have a great relationship because of it. And I think it worked out about as good as it possibly could. I don't think anybody could write a script any better than the way it transpired. But I think we're both very thankful for each other.
Oh, without question. I mean, I laughed like throughout the entire Grey Cup week. I had so many Rough Rider fans coming up and saying like how happy they were for you and for Cody, because they realized all that you went through on your way out, and to be able to recover and flourish the way you did here in Montreal is absolutely phenomenal. And I think it speaks a lot to Rider Nation as well as how much I don't know. I'm hesitant to use the term that they didn't appreciate you guys, but because I think they did, obviously, if they showed the love the way they did, but maybe just didn't realize what they had until they lost it.
I think it's sports in general. I think people lose favor really quickly. Fans is short for fanatic. So people feel a certain way about their teams. When their teams aren't doing very well, they can turn on you. And I think that's just human nature. Very few teams or fans just stick with a person or a player or a coach when things don't quite go their way. The coaches that get longevity, at some point they've experienced a low, but that team's decided to stick with them and see them out the other side rather than just make a really quick judgment and then just move on. And I have a lot of loyalty in my body. With players, with coaches in general. And so I'm always going to steer more towards letting a person get out of a slump rather than make a change in a slump. So that's just how I feel about sports in general and things. But there is a time when maybe a person can no longer do it and you got to make a harsh decision. I don't think that time was quite there for Cody or I, but I always say, hey, when people make those decisions, the one thing I could control was I worked my butt off, and I'll always be proud of it. Every stop I've made, I've only had in mind the job I had and the days and the minutes and hours I spent on those jobs. And I gave everything I had to Saskatchewan. It just didn't work out that year. And, that was their decision to make. I felt very proud of the work I put in daily. And I never, ever didn't give everything I had. And I think Cody would say the same about his effort there. And that's really, as a player or coach, it's all you really can control. And so that's why I try not to – you try to keep your confidence when you go on to the next one. You still have it. It hasn't gone anywhere.
That's amazing. I know you've been so gracious with your time here, Coach. And I know – we had the combine, and we have the draft coming up, and I don't want to give much away, obviously, because if you are the type of person like you were last year when it came to keeping players situations close to the vest, I can understand. So I'll just ask you a generic question. When it came to the combine and comes to the upcoming draft, are you happy with the current position that the team is in when it comes to where the Owls are going to draft in 2024?
Yeah, I think what we have on our team in general, and when we talk about Canadians on our team, you have 21 players that play, and it can be more, it can't be less, and we have 7 starters. And I love the depth that we have on our football team right now. When I think of the 7 starters that are projected, and I think about the 21 Canadians that are projected to make our 45, obviously, there's a lot of battles throughout training camp that are going to happen and transpire. What I also love is the fact that in our league, in my opinion, to be a successful franchise, you have to have flexibility in your ratio. You have to be able to, if a guy gets hurt and you maybe have a younger player backing them up that isn't quite ready to start, if you have someone else that can do that, some other position to take the ratio over, you can do that. I think the draft answers a lot of that flexibility in my mind and depth in my mind. So whether you choose to use it as depth or you choose to go another direction for another position, I like the fact that this draft is pretty deep in that, and that we're going to have seven picks in it. And I know our scouts do such a tremendous job of the later rounds getting quality players. So I look at all 7 picks are probably going to have an opportunity to impact our camp, our season, and then our future. So when I look at it, I think the future is bright for our team with our Canadian talent that we have. And I think it's a direct result of really youth sports just continuing to grow, our Canadians continuing to get better. Obviously, the guys that go down south, that come back up, all those things that help make it what it is. I couldn't be happier with the direction that everything's going. And I look forward to our draft and our draft meetings and pinpointing those individuals and those positions that we're specifically looking at. And really, honestly, it's more of looking at the individuals that are out there and trying to draft the best one that you can project to help your team the most.
You kind of feel like you're playing with house money just a little bit, even though in the sense that you got the 9th pick, and yeah, a lot of great players are available, and there's no glaring needs to, like, as far as I'm concerned on this team, you can truly pick the best player available. Like, that's got to be a good feeling to know that you don't have to worry about trying to fill a specific need. You can just go out there and get the best available player.
Yeah. And I think obviously as we scout it more and we look at our roster and we start projecting things, there's a lot of talks. There's a lot of draft meetings that happen between now and May 1st, I believe, or April 30th, whenever it is, all those talks are going to go on. And there will be some agreement as to who that 9th pick will be or should be. And it can't be just one guy, because that guy could get picked. So there's got to be a lot of situations talked about where if these 3 or 4 players are available, which one do you believe helps us the most? And that's what's cool about the draft. And that's what's exciting about being in draft meetings. That's what's exciting about going through all the film and having multiple people do that. Not just say, hey, I'm the GM. I'm only making the pick. I'm not listening to anybody else. That's not the way we operate it. So we're going to have a lot of opinions in that room. Danny ultimately makes that final call, but there's a lot of people that get to voice their opinions on those things. And when you listen to everybody and you start thinking about and going through every scenario, that right person will be picked, and we'll all be excited about it.
But I tell you, between the moves that were made in free agency, the upcoming draft, and the training camp itself, to see all these new players, whether they were drafted, signed as free agents, or what have you, in addition to the fact that, yes, this is the reigning and defending Grey Cup champions, I mean, how does one not become excited for the 2024 season?
Exactly.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. I think every player that we've talked to, when we talked to all the coaches that have called their position groups or called their bird's nest, the guys that I've had opportunity to talk to, I haven't talked to everybody, but everybody's excited about the season. Everybody's excited about going through this whole thing again and defending it. Not that we'll talk about that every day, because there's going to be 35 individuals in training camp that aren't defending anything. They're trying to win the first one. So it's all about us coming together and trying to win the next one together. And so that'll be what's unique about this. But everybody's excited to get back to playing football and be around each other. I heard that from a number of guys. They're excited about their teammates. And when you hear that, if they put the work in, which I expect they've done, that's what it can't come quick enough, that first day of training camp, because I love watching our team practice and work together.
It's like a new beginning in itself also, Coach, because last year it was done at Trois-Rivières. This year it's going to be done in St. Jerome. So it's going to be a brand new thing for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And the neat part about that, and Trois-Rivières, they treated us extremely well the last couple of years. We can't say enough about them. But when you do move it, it's a new beginning for everybody. It's a new first-time experience for everybody. It's closer to Montreal, so I hope people from Montreal come out and and watch it. Obviously, people are from St. Jerome as well, but the surrounding areas that are excited about us. It's a closer venue, so hopefully people do get excited about what we're doing, and we're going to need everybody, because, like I said, to win a championship, it does take everybody. So we'll need everyone to do this all again.
Yeah, and fans need to remember too, I've already mentioned it too, is that not only can you get there by car, you can get there by train, and you can get there by bus. So that's the main thing for St. Jerome. One quick question. I had a little fun with this one here, Coach, and hopefully I can get an answer from you. What did you do with take the trophy home day?
Yeah, obviously I've been fortunate. This is my 4th time winning it, and I've gotten it every time. Even as an assistant coach in Toronto, they allowed me to have it, and I worked in the oil field at that time, so I took it out in the oil field and took it to a couple rigs and things like that. So this time, obviously, my family, Justin Lawrence dropped it off with his whole family, so that was neat to see his mom and dad and girlfriend, and he had a photographer with him, so they took some pictures for us, some family photos. So we got to hang out that first night. Actually, my daughter and my son had it in the basement. They had a little slumber party with it. My wife and I went to bed pretty early. But the next day was when we had it. And I have a really special friend here that owns a business, and he's done such extraordinary things with our community, giving back. So he asked to have it at his place, at his establishment. So we had it at a place called Nietzsche's Pizza. Peter there does such a tremendous job with the stallery over the years, and this time we decided to do it for the homeless. So we had a little thing where we had anybody that came in, and we tried to tailor it more towards kids. Any kid that came in through the door got to have their own pizza for free. They got to make their own pizza, and any donation was going to go to the homeless. So actually this week or next week, we're going to go out and deliver on that. So all the money is going to go towards pizzas. We're going to deliver pizzas to the homeless in the next couple weeks. So that was what I got to do with it for the day. So we did it for 4 hours, which was awesome, and got to see a lot of people come through there. And then after that, the glasses I wear are from Vision Parlor here in Sherwood Park. And so a friend of mine owns the business, and we went over and celebrated it with them as well, and gave back, got a couple pictures with her and the husband, and that was awesome. And then we ended up dropping it off to Jake Hardy the next day in Red Deer. So
that's amazing.
Now, does this eye care place, do they give discounts to referees? Because Lord knows they should for some.
You said it, I didn't.
So, I was about to say, Cliff, we don't want to fine them, and it's only the preseason, so
it's off season. It doesn't count. It's all good.
I got a couple of good new pairs of glasses, so I'm excited. And my prescription was off a little bit, so I'm excited to have new ones ready for the season.
Actually, we noticed, by the way, too, Coach, a couple of weeks ago, we saw you doing another interview, and you had shaved everything off, and I was like, I didn't recognize Coach Maas without his beard on. So we can see it's already started up for 2024, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not gifted in the facial hair department, so it takes me a while to grow it. So this has been growing for a while, but yeah, you never know it with me. I can get one fill one day and it's gone the next. So
yeah, I'm
not too partial to it.
Hey, Coach, we really appreciate your time, man. I mean, you've been so gracious with your time itself. We're looking forward to seeing you at training camp in St. Jerome, and obviously, we wish you nothing but the best, obviously, in the upcoming draft, and obviously with how you're going to lead our team in 2024. Again, thanks a bunch, Coach.
Thanks, Cliff. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate you guys for having me.
All right.
I know we were saying before it was worthwhile, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely, it was. I mean, so thankful to have the opportunity. We've had the opportunity to talk with Coach Maas after games, and always insightful, always engaging. Just an absolutely great time. There was no doubt in my mind that this interview was going to be well worth the effort to make it happen, and I'm so glad we did. Once again, so thankful that Coach Maas was able to give us some of his time to sit and chat with us. We'll definitely have him back on again. There's absolutely no question about that. Tim, I think the only way you can describe this interview, and with all due respect to our friends over the Turf District, I would have to say that our interview with the coach was absolutely awesome.
Yes, sir. Wait.
I had to, Andrew. I had to.
Wait.
Sorry.
Points.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah. Coach actually had mentioned a couple of things. I wanted to at least give a little bit of context. He had mentioned, and maybe people had seen that I had sent stuff out during the year, asking questions. Once we did see the infamous logo that he was able, man, he described it in so much detail. He really did, and just hearing about what's going to show up potentially for 2024 is absolutely amazing. But at least I wanted to give our viewers and listeners, if you hadn't seen it, if you hadn't seen the sort of because it was in the locker room at Grey Cup, you couldn't miss it. Now, if you did, this is why I'm going to show you. So I at least want to show everybody what this thing looked like, and just to show how much detail there was actually in this logo, because dude, everything that he mentioned, there's just so much symbolism in this thing. He was talking about the tail itself. The tail is the M in the Delta logo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just so much information in this thing, and very, very well done. And I'm curious to see what they do for 2024.
Yeah, and if you folks are just listening to the podcast, you're not actually watching it on YouTube, then by all means, get to our YouTube channel, because you'll see it right there, and you'll get to see a lot of the stuff that Coach Maas was talking about, like a lot of the symbolisms, a lot of the Easter eggs, if you will, whatever you want to call it. But there's a lot, and a lot of the meaning was explained. Like, he did a great job explaining a lot of what some of it, like some of the stuff is pretty obvious, like what it means, but for him to actually go and break it down into detail the way that he did, I mean, absolutely outstanding. And I'm really excited to see what the grind for 9 is going to produce now. I mean, we got the grade 8, absolutely amazing, and I think he was even a little surprised at how quickly this all came about, with the fact that the Alouettes won the Grey Cup basically in his first year as head coach of this team. And like, well, what do you do for an encore? Well, we grind for 9, and that's simply what it is. And now to see this logo possibly evolve or take on a new form, kind of like a Pokemon, just changing it up a little bit.
You got to catch them
evolving
all.
into got to catch all the logos. But I'm curious to see what is going to be done for this 2024 season as this team does prepare and get ready to contend and hopefully bring home a 9th Grey Cup championship in 2024.
Yeah, exactly. And there's like a lot of things that there was a lot that happened before, in our pre-interview and stuff like that. And we had a little bit that was post. I mean, one of the things that we found out in the post interview was we just happened to ask him about the rings. He said there were multiple people on the ring committee itself. Everybody seemed to get all their ideas and all of their symbolisms that are going to be in the ring. We didn't ask for hints because we knew we weren't going to get any.
Yeah.
Because you know what? This is one of those type of things, sort of like how it was with the Texas Rangers rings that were just released this past week. Those are things of beauty. I can only imagine from what Coach Maas has mentioned, just what they, his words, his adjectives, etc. This thing's going to be a thing of beauty, and I just can't wait for these glam shots at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be quite as ostentatious as what a Super Bowl ring has become. I mean, some of them have LED lights. Some of them,
yeah, that was the Rams. Yeah.
The top comes off and becomes a pendant, and then when you look inside the actual ring itself, you see like a replica of the stadium and all sorts of other things. Like there's a whole like ecosystem practically going on there.
The Texas Rangers one has a rotating top. It comes off, it rotates. So there's 2 different logos on 2 sides. And on the inside, Cliff, you know what folds out? Something folds out, and it has a piece of the baseballs that they use at the World Series. I was like, are you kidding me?
I mean, that's wild. I mean, that's what I mean. Like things have really gone out of control. And again, I fully expect. I don't think the Alouettes will have anything quite to that scale, like that kind of grandeur. But I definitely think it will be a work of art. I mean, I think back to the 2009, 2010 rings, and those were absolutely stunning. Like those were works of art. Like very blingy, but not like really. Like nothing quite like a Super Bowl ring or a World Series ring, but
just
still a nice,
just as big,
pretty big. Not gonna lie, and absolutely beautiful. So I'm definitely curious to see how it's gonna look, and I'm without question there are gonna be a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of little subtle hints to certain things, and people are going to be counting the number of rubies and sapphires that no doubt will be a part of it, because blue and red, obviously Alouettes colors, like those no doubt be in there. I'd be shocked if they don't have the Emberd logo on there with and probably 8 diamonds to represent the ring. Who the hell knows? I mean, there's all sorts of ways that they can go with this, and it's going to be interesting to see. So I mean, we're not going to know till June, more than likely, because that's typically when they've done it, is either before training camp or just after.
I think it's right before. I think it'll be right before they have a whole ceremony, and I can't wait. Wouldn't it be funny, Cliff? Wouldn't it be funny if the Alouettes become the first CFL franchise to have a ring where the top is able to remove?
You know what?
Considering who's backing them, I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't surprise me one bit.
I wouldn't bet against it, to tell you the truth. I mean, I think that's truly is where things are going right now. Like, it almost feels like a contest to see who can come up with the most outlandish thing for a championship ring, and leave it to the Alouettes to try something like that.
The Argos ones were nice. The last one, they were nice.
Oh yeah, Winnipeg's were nice too. I mean, they said they were big, kind of showy, but not like ridiculous, And I got a feeling the Alouettes will find a way to be original, but at the same time not outlandish. I don't think it's going to be too crazy.
No, but those Rams one was, I think it was the Rams ones that had the LED lights. That was crazy. That was just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, and.
What other things did you take away from Coach Maas's pre-interview? Because I know we talked with him about a couple of things. I know you were talking with him when I was dealing with something with the audio and stuff like that. But anything else that you took away with it you might want to mention openly to our listeners?
I mean, like I said, it's just we covered a lot of topics, and just being able to chat with Coach Maas was such a treat. I mean, we can sit for hours and talk about it, but folks.
Even he said it during the interview. He said, "If you have time,
that's the thing. We will always make time for Coach Maas. I mean, and he's made time for us, which I cannot thank him enough for being generous with his time. And it's kind of funny. Like I had to laugh. Like I was just thinking about when he told us about how he spent his day with the cup. I almost always forget that he's out in Alberta. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's great. Like that's that he's able to bring that to the community and let them get excited about it, because Superfan Mike from the Turf District podcast was with when Justin Lawrence had the cup for the day.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He got to be a part of it. He got to see the cup up close and everything like that. And yeah, that's pretty cool. And just the fact that, the coaches, everybody seems to be able to get their day with the cup as well. And the fact that Coach Maas was able to take his day and use it for charity, essentially, is so cool.
That was amazing.
I should have asked him if he was ever going to, if he had a thought to maybe eat some pizza out of the Grey Cup, but
well, we had poutine eaten out of it. I'm sure we had a lot of stuff that was poured into the cup and taken sips of. So.
You know what? And yeah, probably he strikes me as a health conscious kind of guy. So maybe he knows where that cup has been. So I don't think he's going to eat anything served in it or out of it. So
yeah,
perhaps it was better. It was one of those questions that was perhaps better left unasked.
Yeah. Another thing too, and this is just something I want to mention now, because it leads into also, we're talking about players and different stuff like that. So we're talking about the draft, stuff like that. It came over the wire, and that's the only reason why I'm mentioning it now. Because I know there's another topic we want to talk about tonight before we finish, is that according to the CFL Transactions Wire, Cliff, as of April 2nd, Davis Alexander, it looks like, has had his contract either renegotiated or he's had an extension given to him, because how it is listed, if anybody knows how the CFL Transaction Wire currently works, if you see a player that is deleted from an active roster and then added back to the active roster, it usually means those one of two things. Now, in my opinion, Cliff, being that 2024 is Davis's last year as an Alouette on this current contract, I would not be surprised, and this is speculation on my part until we hear otherwise, that this is an extension for Davis Alexander, and I would not be surprised if it's for another year.
Well, no matter what happens with Davis, I mean, anything that's going to help him be the player that we know he can be, I'm all for it, because we know what Davis Alexander brings to the table for this Alouettes organization, and whatever it's going to take to ensure that he stays in Alouette, I'm all for it. So if this is something that's going to, whether it's an extension or reworking the contract or what have you, I mean, we'll find out soon enough. But anything that's going to help Davis be the best possible player he can be for this organization, I will 100% co-sign on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. One of the things we talked to Coach, I think we talked to Coach Maas about before was, you know, the potential tweaking of the CFL rules coming up this year. And we were talking about the infamous, you know, onside punts and on the potential of, God forbid if they make the changes, that'd be so stupid. You know, as I said before, Cliff, it's like if you know the rule book, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to know the rule book in and out and take advantage of every single rule that's there. The NFL has recently announced that they for at least for a 1-year project, they're going to be making some amendments to the kickoff rule, which the rules are going to be very similar to the way that the XFL did it, where there's basically no moving parts until the receiver actually catches it. In I think they call it the catch zone. I'm trying to remember what the terminology was, but needless to say, Cliff, what I wanted to talk to you before we finish up tonight is, what are your thoughts on, do you think that there's a possibility that this type of rule change for the kickoff, for any type of kickoffs in this could make its way into the CFL?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What I find is interesting is the UFL is not, well, they were the ones, well, I guess when it was the XFL, that's where this current
iteration,
thank you, came about. The interesting fact is they're not using it themselves this year. Maybe it's because of the fact that it's a combined league now. I don't know if that was the reason why, because I don't believe they're using this kickoff in the USFL when it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting that the NFL is going to try this and see if it helps with keeping injuries down and making the potential for more exciting, like for the game to open up and become more exciting. One could argue that the CFL doesn't have to worry about that because, by and large, the kickoff and kick returns and punt returns in the Canadian Football League are pretty exciting. Yes, you're going to get those times where a guy barely goes past the 5-yard halo and is immediately tackled and play stops dead right there. But when you get someone like a James Letcher Jr. or Mario Alford that's able to break one off, that's exciting. And that's what people want to see, and especially in the NFL too, because a kick return touchdown, it's so rare. I think maybe it happens once, twice a year if you're lucky. And if this opens up the chance for more offense, for more scoring, yeah, people are going to be excited about that because people want to see scoring. Like, as much as some people love a good defensive battle, myself included, people want to see touchdowns. And whether it's passing, running, catching, or in this case, a kick or punt return for a touchdown, to me, it's worth checking out. See if it does make a difference or not. I mean, I'm already resigned to the fact we're just going to see more touchbacks than anything else, and that's fine. I mean, that's just what it is. But
I think it's the NFL's trying to do is they're trying to cut down on the touchbacks themselves, because I guess depending on where they get the balls, where the ball will be placed. And I think what I think, in my opinion, when it comes to the CFL, I mean, currently right now, if you're within a certain period of the game itself, you know, you kick a field goal, there's no kickoff. There's no kickoff. It starts at a specific yard line. Other times you have the option after a kickoff is after a field goal is kicked. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, not very many go into the end zone. I mean, to me, that's one of the most boring parts about the NFL is that kickoffs continuously go into the end zone. It doesn't happen here in the CFL.
Not as often as what people seem to think, and you know, and if he does go through the end zone, there's your rouge. So
exactly,
and that's one of those other things too that people find very polarizing too. Is, do you keep the rouge or do you not? And would a new kickoff rule change that? And again, if people are getting up in arms about the onside punt, can you just imagine if they even entertain the notion of maybe getting rid of the rouge? Oh, forget that.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, all of these plays come down to one simple thing: strategy. it's knowing, as you said, you talked about this already, knowing the rule book, knowing how to use it to your benefit. And simply put, if you don't like some of these rules, then that's on you, the opponent, to coach better, to make sure that the opportunity for these things don't happen. You don't like the onside punt, then play better defense. Simple as that. We've talked about this before. Well, I guess the only time's going to tell what's going to happen as far as these new kickoff rules go in the NFL, and if it's actually going to work or not. I think it's way too soon to even consider something like that for the Canadian Football League. I think, by and large, how it sits right now, it works pretty well. So this is one of those cases where it's not broke, so don't fix it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. And I guess we'll find out. Obviously, that's coming up, where the rules committee will decide if there are going to be any changes. And I hope don't. Yeah. Just because of 1 year, people get pissed off about something, and then it's like, oh, get rid of the rule. It's unfair. Learn the rule book. Learn the rule book. I mean, even Coach Maas mentioned it to us, that it was another instance of when they were playing Ottawa and it failed. You know, so if you think about it, the last 5 that we know of, only 2 of them have been successful. That's 2. So that's 2 out of 5, less than 50%.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not like it's not like only the Alouettes can use this move and nobody else can. Mm-hmm. Anyone else can do it if you're willing to put the time in and practice and get your special teams coach and units to get this down, or your off. I guess I should not really special teams, but your coaching staff, whoever it may be that comes up with this and the opportunity to use this, they're free to. So why wouldn't you? And hey, maybe one day you catch the Alouettes snapping because of something like that. Could you imagine? And then they'll be like,
BC tried it. BC tried it, failed horribly in the playoffs versus the Alouettes, but they still tried it. So
you're talking like, several years ago, but you're right.
Yeah. But that's the last one that we can remember that it happened to the Alouettes. But yeah, so we'll see what happens going forward. We'll see what happens. Again, don't forget, by the way, we are on social media. You can find us many places. You can find me at Repack. You can find Cliff at Cliffy D. You can also that's on Twix. You can also find us at Alouettes FL Deck. Also, on Facebook, we are located at Alouettes Flightdeck Pod, and also on Instagram and YouTube, we are at Alouettes Flightdeck. Also, if you are looking to see or hear any of our past episodes, you can head over to our archive at www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. Head over to YouTube to see all of our past video versions, because there are quite a them up there now, including I guess we could say season 1 of Flight Deck Live. Also, if you're looking to rep any merchandise, maybe you want to wear your We the Ones shirt to camp or to the first game of the year, or if you want to get some of the new 2024 merch, head over to our shop at www.flightdeckgear.ca.
And again, if you are watching this on YouTube, folks, please drop that like, leave a comment, let us know how we're doing. Just show that you're engaging with the show, because it really does help us out big time. We definitely appreciate it. And of course, also too, leaving notes in the comments, let us know what you like, what you don't like, and we check it out. We pay attention, and it's all about trying to make this better for you. So by all means, hit the like, and also too, hit the notification bell so that you get made aware of when we go live or when a new episode of the Flight Deck drops. Make sure that you're following us. Make sure you're informed. Make sure you know when the Flight Deck's happening, because season's just around the corner. I mean, I keep saying it's April now. Like, in less than a month, we're going to have the draft.
Just over 30 days to camp too.
I mean, we're rounding third and heading for home, basically.
That's right. So stay tuned to all of our socials for anything that when we do get set up Flight Deck HQ over in either in Saint Jerome or in Saint Sauveur, Quebec. I will let you guys know, because we'll be doing some shows while we are there. So we're looking forward to it. We just got to find out what the schedule is going to be. So yeah. So, as we're still continuing with our off-season schedule, you will see us again in approximately the next 2 weeks, unless something else comes up that's more that is newsworthy. But stay tuned to all of our socials. But you can, I would say, expect us Expect us somewhere around the 17th, give or take. But again, stay tuned to all of our socials, and we'll make sure we let you guys know that we are going to be broadcasting or not. So, but yeah, other than that, but great show this week. Love speaking with Coach Maas, and I know that we're getting giddy when it comes to finding out how this team's going to do when it comes to defending the Grey Cup in 2024.
Without question, it's going to be great. Once again, thank you again to Coach Jason Maas for joining us this evening and just sharing some of his wisdom, getting to know him a little bit more as well. I mean, it was definitely fantastic, and this is what we're all about, folks. We want to share these moments. We want to share the chance to get to know these, not just the players, but the coaches and other members of this organization as well. So again, I said it before and I'll say it again. Definitely make sure you're following us on socials. Make sure you follow, hit the like button on, subscribe to us on YouTube as well. I mean, this is how you stay informed and stay a part of the flight crew, essentially. So please make sure you're on board with us, folks.
Exactly. So Cliff, I'll talk to you soon, buddy. And we'll talk to you, the fans, in a couple of weeks. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. Run final approach.